Every Brazilian UFC fighter, the ultimate breakdown, explained. Brazil didn't just give us the beautiful game of football and carnival, they gave us something way more violent and way more beautiful, the most dominant fighting nation in UFC history. We're talking about a country that turned fighting into an art form, where kids learn to choke people out before they learn to ride a bike, and where every beach has at least 3 future UFC champions training in the sand. Look, I've been watching UFC since the days when it looked more like a street fight than a sport. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When you see Brazil next to a fighter's name, you better buckle up because you're about to witness something special. Today, we're breaking down every major Brazilian UFC fighter who made their mark in the octagon, from the pioneers who built the foundation to the modern-day killers who are carrying the torch. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why Brazil isn't just a country. It's a fighting philosophy that changed combat sports forever. The pioneers, the Gracie Revolution. Let's start where it all began, with the man who walked into UFC 1 looking like he was about to teach a yoga class and ended up revolutionizing fighting forever. Royce Gracie. Picture this, November 12th, 1993, Denver, Colorado. The Ultimate Fighting Championship debuts with one simple question. Which martial art is the most effective? You've got boxers, kickboxers, wrestlers, and then there's this skinny Brazilian guy in a white jai who looks like he weighs about as much as my little sister. Royce wasn't the biggest Gracie brother. Hell, he wasn't even close, but that was the point. The Gracie family wanted to prove that technique beats size, and boy, did they prove it. Royce submitted 3 guys in one night, Art Jimmerson, Ken Shamrock, and Gerard Gordo, without throwing a single punch. He just hugged them until they went to sleep. The man holds the record for most tournament wins in UFC history and has the highest submission per win percentage, 10 submissions in 11 UFC wins. That's not fighting. That's systematic dismantling of human beings using leverage and physics. But here's what blows my mind about Royce. He didn't just win fights, he changed the entire sport. Before UFC 1, martial artists trained in one discipline. After Royce, everyone realized you better learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or you're going to get strangled by someone half your size. The spider's web, Anderson Silva era. Now, if Royce Gracie was the architect of modern MMA, then Anderson Silva was the artist who painted the Sistine Chapel of violence. Anderson, the Spider Silva, didn't just fight, he performed. This man turned the octagon into his personal dance floor and his opponents into unwilling dance partners. From 2006 to 2013, Silva held the UFC middleweight championship for 2,457 days. Let me put that in perspective. That's almost 7 years of being the undisputed king of 185 pounds. The Spider's record speaks for itself. 34 wins, 23 by knockout, and a highlight reel that looks like it was choreographed by a sadistic ballet instructor. Remember the front kick that sent Vitor Belfort to the Shadow Realm? Or when he made Charles Sonnen tap with a triangle choke in the final minutes after getting dominated for 4.5 rounds? But what made Anderson special wasn't just his technique, it was his mind games. This man would literally put his hands behind his back, lean against the cage, and dare you to hit him. And when you tried, boom. Counter left hook, good night, thanks for playing. The crazy part? Anderson was doing this against killers. Rich Franklin, Dan Henderson, Yushin Okami, these weren't tomato cans. These were elite middleweights, and Silva made them look like they were moving in slow motion. The king of Rio, José Aldo. Speaking of kings, let's talk about José Aldo, the man who ruled the featherweight division like it was his personal kingdom. Before Conor McGregor knocked him out in 13 seconds, and we'll get to that, Aldo was considered untouchable at 145 pounds. This man didn't lose a fight for 10 years. 10 years. That's longer than some UFC fighters' entire careers. Aldo's leg kicks were like baseball bats wrapped in dynamite. His takedown defense was so good that elite wrestlers would shoot on him and end up questioning their life choices. And his speed. The man threw combinations that looked like they were sped up in post-production. 7 title defenses, victories over legends like Urija Faber, Chad Mendes, and Frankie Edgar. Aldo wasn't just beating guys, he was schooling them in the art of featherweight fighting. Then came December 12th, 2015, UFC 194, the most hyped fight in featherweight history. McGregor versus Aldo. The trash talk, the world tour, the mind games, It all led to 13 seconds of violence that changed everything. But here's what I respect about Aldo. He didn't disappear after that loss. He came back, reclaimed the interim title, and proved that one moment doesn't define a legacy. The man is still competing at the highest level, and at 38 years old, he's still making young fighters look foolish. Du Bronx, Charles Oliveira. Now let's talk about the submission machine himself, Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. This man holds more UFC records than a vinyl collector. Most submission wins, 16. Most finishes, 20. Most performance bonuses, 20. Charles doesn't just win fights. He collects them like Pokemon cards. What makes Oliveira special is his evolution. Early in his career, he was known for having a weak chin and folding under pressure. Fast forward to 2021, and he's knocking out Michael Chandler to win the lightweight title and proving that sometimes the best revenge is massive success. The man's ground game is like watching a magician work. He'll be getting beaten up on the feet, then suddenly his opponent is tapping to a rear naked choke, and you're sitting there wondering what the hell just happened. His title reign might have been short, but his impact is permanent. Oliveira showed that in the deepest division in the UFC, technique and heart can overcome any adversity. The Lioness, Amanda Nunes. Let's give some love to the woman who might be the greatest female fighter of all time, Amanda, the Lioness Nunes. This woman didn't just break barriers, she demolished them with her fists. 2-division champion, 7 bantamweight title defenses, and victories over every big name in women's MMA. Ronda Rousey, knocked out in 48 seconds. Chris Cyborg, knocked out in 51 seconds. Miesha Tate, submitted in the first round. Nunes had power that could put men to sleep and grappling that could make Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts tap. She retired as the undisputed GOAT of women's MMA, and honestly, it's not even close. The heavyweight kings. Brazil has always produced heavyweight monsters, and we've got to talk about the big boys. Junior dos Santos, Cigano, the man with boxing so crisp it could cut glass. JDS knocked out Cain Velasquez to win the heavyweight title and showed that Brazilian heavyweights weren't just grapplers anymore. Fabricio Werdum, the man who submitted Fedor Emelianenko and knocked out Cain Velasquez at altitude in Mexico City. Werdum proved that heavyweight fights could be won with technique, not just power. And we can't forget about the legends who paved the way. Vitor the Phenom Belfort, whose hands were so fast they looked like they were powered by rocket fuel, and Lyoto the Dragon Machida, who brought karate to MMA and made it look beautiful. The new generation. The current crop of Brazilian fighters is keeping the tradition alive. Alex Pereira, Poatan, the former kickboxing champion who knocked out Israel Adesanya twice and is now terrorizing the light heavyweight division. This man hits so hard that his opponent's ancestors feel it. Gilbert Burns, Paulo Costa, Jailton Almeida, these guys are carrying the torch and proving that Brazilian MMA isn't going anywhere. The Brazilian fighting philosophy. Here's what makes Brazilian fighters different. They don't just train to win, they train to finish. Whether it's a submission, a knockout, or just breaking your will to fight, Brazilians come to end the night early. The combination of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's technical ground game with Muay Thai's devastating striking creates fighters who are dangerous everywhere. Add in that Brazilian heart, that refusal to quit, even when everything is going wrong, and you get fighters who are nightmare matchups for anyone. Brazilian fighters also have this unique rhythm to their fighting. It's like they're dancing to music only they can hear. Watch Anderson Silva slip punches or see how Charles Oliveira flows from position to position on the ground. There's an artistry to it that you don't see from other countries. The cultural impact. Brazil didn't just produce great fighters. They changed the culture of fighting. Before the Gracies, martial arts were separate disciplines. After them, everyone realized you needed to be well-rounded or you'd get exposed. The Brazilian approach to training is also unique. They train hard, but they also train smart. The concept of flow rolling in jiu-jitsu, where you work on technique without going 100% intensity, has been adopted by fighters worldwide. And let's be honest, Brazilians know how to sell a fight. The passion, the emotion, the way they celebrate victories and handle defeats, It all adds to the spectacle that makes UFC so entertaining. The numbers don't lie. Let's talk statistics for a second because the numbers are absolutely insane. Brazil has produced more UFC champions per capita than any other country. They've had champions in every men's division and dominated women's MMA for years. Brazilian fighters have the highest finishing rate in the UFC. They don't leave it to the judges. They also have some of the longest title reigns in UFC history. Anderson Silva's 2,457-day reign, José Aldo's 1,848 days as featherweight champion. These aren't just impressive numbers, they're historical landmarks. The controversies and comebacks. Of course, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. Brazilian fighters have faced their share of controversies, failed drug tests, visa issues, and the occasional bar fight that makes headlines. But what I respect about Brazilian fighters is their ability to come back from adversity. Anderson Silva breaking his leg against Chris Weidman and coming back to fight again. José Aldo getting knocked out by McGregor and reclaiming his status as one of the best featherweights ever. These guys don't stay down. What makes them special? So what is it about Brazil that produces such incredible fighters? Is it the culture, the training methods, the fact that they start learning jiu-jitsu before they can walk? I think it's a combination of everything. Brazil has a fighting culture that goes back generations. They have world-class training facilities and coaches who understand both the technical and mental aspects of fighting. But most importantly, they have that Brazilian spirit, that belief that no matter how bad things get, you can always find a way to win. Brazilian fighters don't just represent themselves when they step into the octagon. They represent their families, their communities, and their country. That kind of pressure would crush some people, but Brazilians seem to thrive under it. The future. Looking ahead, the future of Brazilian MMA looks bright. The new generation is more well-rounded than ever, combining traditional Brazilian strengths with modern training methods and sports science. We're seeing Brazilian fighters who can wrestle with Americans, strike with Dutch kickboxers, and still maintain that Brazilian flair that makes them so dangerous and entertaining. So there you have it. Every major Brazilian UFC fighter who made their mark in the octagon. From Royce Gracie's revolutionary jiu-jitsu to Anderson Silva's matrix-like striking, from José Aldo's featherweight dominance to Amanda Nunes' two-division reign, Brazil has given us some of the greatest fighters in UFC history. But here's my question for you. Who do you think is the greatest Brazilian UFC fighter of all time? Is it Royce Gracie for starting the revolution, Anderson Silva for his artistic dominance, José Aldo for his decade of excellence, or maybe someone I didn't spend enough time on? Drop your pick in the comments below and let me know why you think they're the GOAT. And while you're down there, hit that like button if you learned something new about Brazilian MMA, and subscribe because we've got more deep dives into fighting history coming your way. Also, let me know what country you want me to break down next. Russia? Maybe we go completely wild and do a video on the best fighters from countries you've never heard of. Until next time, keep training, keep watching, and remember, in Brazil, everyone knows jiu-jitsu, so be nice to Brazilians.